I would like to welcome to the stage Dr. Michael Sulmeyer, the Belfer Center Cybersecurity Project Director at the Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. He's also contributing editor for Lawfare. Before joining Harvard, Dr. Sulmeyer served as the Director for Plans and Operations for Cyber Policy in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, I suppose for the previous administration. And Dr. Sulmeyer worked closely with the Joint Staff and the Cyber Command on countering all sorts of malicious cyber activity against the United States. Michael received his PhD from Oxford, Masters in War Studies from King's College London, and previously at Stanford. Please.
All right. Speed dating time. We'll go fast and make up for some time here. Start the stopwatch. Thank you very much. My name is Michael Sulmeyer, otherwise known as the Joe Nye Warm-Up Act. It's great to be with you here again. Always rough to be in front of Joe Nye, but we'll be crisp. We have wonderful people. You get a great show today, and the organizers should be complimented for that. I do want to point out a wonderful former student that we had. Olivia Zetter is here. Raise your hand. Wonderful master's student from Harvard a couple years ago who's now trying to work on these hard problems in government. So I want to also acknowledge that we are trying to work really hard on the academic side, but we also got to train the next generation to go solve the problems that Martin left me with. So with that, let me offer a couple thoughts here on the fake news. We're really talking about two different things, and I actually am going to try to save some time at the end for some options about what to do about it, which I then expect to be assaulted for at the break. But the two different things are this. The first is there is information that represents an opinion or a set of facts or something that one party finds inconvenient or unwelcome. This is news I don't like. That has been called fake news. There is also information whose creators and distributors know the information to be false and inaccurate. That's trolling other people. I like saying the word trolling as a verb. You don't get to do that a whole lot at Harvard, I find. Trolling other people with information that you know is false, often by fake social media accounts, but by no means exclusively. And also designing and enabling bots to do this as well on an automated level, and that problem is only going to get worse. Let me just say, I think the media conversation where we're at today is largely focused on the first, the news I don't like, that I'm going to call fake news. But the real challenge, I think, for public policy is the second. The news I don't like, we've seen this stuff before. It's so much bigger than the old spin rooms that we heard about from the Clinton administration. The CNN effect from the 1990s has been massively outdone by what Twitter can provide. And what we're seeing with applying the label fake news to something that you don't like is a new tactic to undermine the person who is saying that which you don't like. All right? This is an escalation of an effort to undermine a counter-argument and an opponent. It's a declaration that the other side is a liar. Right? This is a problem, right? Because it makes it much harder to ever have a constructive dialogue about getting anything done. It does rally the base. It does harden support, right? It makes it much easier to get your base supporting what you're doing every moment of the day, but it makes it very difficult to be able to walk back from saying that. Hello, I agree with you, but we'll take questions in a minute. Obviously, this is disappointing to witness, right? And this is not constructive. But call me an optimist. I actually do not think that this escalation in rhetoric is a permanent feature of American politics or where things are going on the global stage. I really don't. I have no evidence for that, but I don't believe that to be the case. There remains a good supply of leaders and a good supply in the global citizenry, I think, that understands this is not productive. It's entertaining and it's politically expedient at times, but I do think there actually is an awareness that this is not a good way to run a railroad. Now, I gotta say, I am probably one of the most biased people you will ever meet to be able to talk about this. I grew up in Southern California. I got my doctorate at Oxford, law degree at fancy Stanford. I work at Harvard, and I live in the People's Republic of Cambridge. I am not in touch, right, with America, right, and the broader movements that are out there. I'm really not, right? But you have me up here talking, so you get what I think. That's where the bias comes, and you need to be honest about where your speaker is coming from and what the bias is. So I'm trying to be honest with you about that. So if you want to keep that in mind, you should. On category 2, though, this is the one that is the sleeper, that we all know these are big problems. And we haul, Zuckerberg up to Congress to testify, but we don't see a whole lot of action being done around it. I think one of the most common refrains that you hear by the tech community and the technology companies is about that this is really about protecting the First Amendment. And we can't combat fake news because the companies have to be comfortable with and support the First Amendment. That is not really accurate in terms of constitutional law. I did First Amendment law years ago in law school. It was a great class. This is always a dangerous thing to get up and talk in front of an audience when you've taken a class but never practiced it. But look, this is what the First Amendment says. Congress shall make no law, extra words, abridging the freedom of speech or the press, extra words. Okay? That is what the First Amendment says. It does not say Facebook can't tell you what to say. It says the government can't abridge your speech. Companies can abridge whatever the hell they want, right? With a little asterisk, right? And we'll get back to that. But the first thing they tell you in First Amendment class is that the First Amendment and others, they protect you, the individual, from the government, but they also tell you that the First Amendment and its protections are not absolute. They're not. It's not an absolute protection. On the first part, the negative implication, as I said, is that companies and other individuals, they certainly can abridge your speech, right? They do that a great deal. What we instead, I think, are hearing are the platforms saying that they want their products, their software, their engines, to be aligned with the values of the First Amendment, not to actually practice in the letter of the law. Sometimes I think this is actually genuine. I think when you listen to the founders of WhatsApp, for example, and you see how they've designed their system, this is not to focus on any one company or app, I don't mean it that way, just as an example. I think you actually can see some faith and some genuine alignment there with the values. There are also aspects to that where you can say this is not really true, and it comes into most relief when you compare it to privacy, right? It's convenient to cite values that line up with your business model when it works. But it's also convenient to not mention certain values that are not lining up with your business model. And I think you see that a lot when it comes to then other companies saying, well, we definitely respect the right to free speech, which is why we can't delete content. But we're not going to say a whole lot about the right to privacy because we're not respecting your right to privacy. We're harvesting and mining all your data to see how we can make a ton of money off it. Right? But that's a different issue, which we're not going to quite channel as we're talking about our faith and fidelity to the First Amendment. When we talk about the applicability to it, just note that when the government asks a company to do something, then you get into a little bit of a gray zone because the company is then treated as an agent of the government and the First Amendment issues would apply to the company. That's a little extra part. We can talk about that later. Let me mention the carve-outs, though, where freedom of speech is actually not protected. Right? That our Constitution and our justices have actually gone for now a couple centuries and said the freedom of speech is not absolute. There is no protection in our system of government for obscenity, for child pornography, or for fighting words. Right? This is doctrine. Right? There is also reduced or limited protection for commercial speech, for defamation, speech harmful to children, speech broadcast on the radio and on television, right? This is where we have laws that actually do restrict the freedom of speech. I'm not making a value judgment or a normative judgment to say good, bad. All I'm saying is a little recitation without giving you any specifics of some Supreme Court doctrine in this space, right? Which is that it is not an absolute protection. So what do you do with deliberately fake news? On the one hand, as I said, you've got some libel and slander laws. You've got some things that say, well, to a certain degree, completely fake, false information, yeah, we're not going to protect all of that. But there's also a general acceptance of what we call puffery, right? And I think there's actually a big case about the weight loss industry, right? Making claims about how much weight you'll lose if you have our diet plan. And we know they're exaggerating. Is it outright lying? Is it fake news? I don't know. You might lose some weight, right? But we're comfortable as a society, evidently, right, with that degree of what our doctrines call puffery. So that is going to be a distinction we're going to have to draw when we look at the content that we're talking about in terms of really fake news. Is there an element of it where you write off and say some of this is puffery that we need to live by? Not sure. Not sure on that. The problem of the truly fake content, I think, is that it's only going to get harder in terms of the data, the compute power, the algorithms, enabling really now a recording of one speaker to convincingly speak in another's words. This is going to play out. Literally, you're going to see people talking, and it's going to be someone else putting the words in their mouth, thanks to what everyone, artificial intelligence, VR. To be hip, I guess you have to now say blockchain in every other sentence. But you're going to see it in marketing. You're going to see it in business competition. Crooks, both the petty ones and the serious. It's coming to politics and a race near you, right? Even how history is written and rewritten by the victors over time, right? And how we're going to be looking at what people said and trying to determine if it's actually true. Look, I'm actually not one of these guys who stays up all night wondering about the killer robots with artificial intelligence. I do stay up at night, though, thinking about, well, a lot of things, but thinking about the fake news aspect and putting words in someone else's mouth and having them look so genuine and so real that you cannot tell that it wasn't really Barack Obama who said those words, for example, as one of the videos we've seen recently. That is something that really should be frightening. I can deal with Terminator 2. I can manage that. I can probably not, but I cannot manage. I know I can't do the other one. Okay, 11 minutes. I'm going to try to be one of those academics who go short. What can we do about this? A, if it was easy, we would have done it. So challenge anybody who tells you, I got the solution. Good. B, one approach you could take is to riff off of what Justice Brandeis wrote in a concurring opinion, gosh, almost 100 years ago now. He said, if there be time to expose through discussion the falsehood and the fallacies, to avert the evil by the process of education, the remedy to be applied is more speech, not enforced silence. The tweet version of that in 2018 is more speech, not no speech. Okay? You could see a future here where the approach is combat the trash with a lot of good, with more accuracy, and put that into the environment. Okay? I don't know how to structure a regime or a set of institutions to do that, but you could see that as one approach, channeling Justice Brandeis. Okay. Another thing people talk about is, well, the government should regulate it. I don't know what that looks like. I am not entirely sure. I'm very confident that is very difficult to do because of those First Amendment protections, despite the fact it's not an absolute protection, and that there are limited protections for other classes of speech. It's going to be very difficult for the government to tailor certain restrictions. That said, it has been difficult in the past for the government to do that, and governments, state, local, federal, have tried. They've done it through what are called time, place, and manner restrictions, right, which are restrictions that are not necessarily about the content, but get at ways about how that speech can be said, where it can be said, right, and cabining it in certain ways. So that might be an approach that you see some governments take, is not to ban certain kinds of content, but regulate different methods of the proliferation of the speech. It's possible. It's also possible you could see the carve out of a 9th or 10th, depending on how you count, class of limited protection content of the speech to add to that laundry list that I blasted through way too fast for anybody to write down. It's possible that could happen. I really don't know how that's going to play out, but I would actually expect, as this gets going more and more, especially through the ability and the compute power to do more with big data, that you will start to see some institutions of government try these time, place, and manner type of restrictions. I honestly don't know if it will work, and I'm not sure we've got the tech awareness at the federal judiciary to deal with that accurately, but I think it will be tried. I don't know, I'm not saying that's a good thing, by the way. I'm just saying I think that's something you'll see in the future. Okay, what else we likely to see? I do think we actually are on a positive trend with the speech that I don't like, that I'm going to call fake news. I don't see that as really a persistent, permanent feature, but I'm much more worried about the second class of information, the truly fake, the truly false. You're going to have to deal with not just the creators, but the spreaders, the distributors as well. You can't do one without the other, right? This is going to be a really tough problem, and that's why we'll leave it to Joe Nye to tell you what to do about it, and I'm out with 20 seconds to spare. Thank you very much.